You say you want the truth, but have you ever stopped to think about what happens to you when you find it? Truth is not a reward. It is a funeral, your funeral. Do not expect me to console you with pretty stories about spiritual awakening or enlightenment as a prize at the end of the journey. Buddhist truth gives you nothing, it takes everything, especially you. What you call a spiritual quest is just the ego creating a new identity to avoid death. You aren't seeking enlightenment, you are seeking survival disguised as transcendence. You want to be the same I, only now awakened, conscious, evolved. You want to maintain control, history, and importance. This is not possible. The truth that sets you free is the same truth that kills, and it kills you first. This content will not give you peace. It will not make you feel better about yourself. It will not validate your journey or give you a certificate of spiritual evolution. I am going to show you why you run from reality, why the void terrifies you, and why the eternal search is the ego's final anesthesia, and how the only real freedom requires you to die to the lie you call self. Do not expect consolation, only lucidity without anesthesia. And lucidity hurts infinitely more than comfortable illusion. Spirituality has become an escape industry. Everyone wants to awaken, but no one wants to die. They want to be the same self, only now enlightened, maintaining control, narrative, and a sense of personal importance. They buy manifestation courses, gratitude techniques, and self-knowledge workshops. They accumulate insights as if they were points in a game of spiritual evolution. But this is not awakening. It is the ego strengthening itself through a spiritual identity even more resilient than the previous one. You are not seeking truth. You are decorating the prison so you won't realize the prisoner is fiction. This is not motivational. It offers no emotional relief techniques. It does not exist to make you feel special, chosen, or more evolved than others. It does not promise that everything will be fine if you meditate correctly or vibrate high enough. There is no comfort here. There is no soft shortcut. There is no light version of the truth that you can consume without side effects. If you came seeking inner peace or lasting happiness, you are in the wrong place. You can close this now and go back to the spiritual market that sells anesthesia disguised as wisdom, a conceptual scalpel. Truth as it is in original Buddhism, not a welcoming light that embraces you, but a black hole that consumes the observer. Sunyata is not mystical poetry about cosmic emptiness. It is the annihilation of everything you believe to be real, including yourself. Anatta is not an interesting philosophical concept to debate at retreats. It is the brutal recognition that there was never anyone at the center of your experience. The I that you defend with such effort, that you try to improve and evolve, is merely a rendering error. It is a temporary organization of processes that believes itself to be a solid thing. I will show you why the spiritual search is an ambush, why the seeker is the obstacle, and why every step toward the truth is the ego fortifying itself. I will show you the structure of illusion through the analogy of the film and the screen, how you mistook the character for reality, how time is an editing trick, and how the only real freedom requires the film to stop and the character to be deleted. Not because I want to destroy you, but because the truth does not negotiate. It does not adapt to your emotional comfort. Either you die to the illusion and are born to unmediated reality, or you continue living in the hell of an anesthetized life, pretending that the cell's decoration is freedom. The choice has always been yours, but now you can no longer pretend you don't know it. You treat the spiritual search as if it were a hardware upgrade. You want to improve the self to make it calmer, wiser, more powerful. But here is the clinical diagnosis that no one tells you. The self that seeks the truth is the very lie that prevents the truth from being seen. You operate like the walking dead, held hostage by the impulse to seek, unable to recognize that the entire structure of the search is the obstacle. Every step you take toward enlightenment is the ego strengthening itself, creating more layers of identity, more distance from factual reality. The spiritual search is the most sophisticated ambush the spiritual ego has ever invented to guarantee its own survival. Think of it like this. It is as if darkness tried to carry a flashlight to find the light. Sounds absurd, right? The moment the light appears, the darkness ceases to exist. There is no such thing as enlightened darkness, no possible compromise. There is only lucidity. And the darkness is no longer there. It never really was. It was only absence. The same happens to you. The moment the truth reveals itself, the you that was searching disappears. There is no enlightened you. There is only hard lucidity, and the character who wanted to reach it was deleted in the process. That is why you run. You know this intuitively, even if you don't admit it consciously. The fear of reality keeps you running. The ego detects truth as a threat of existential death. And it is absolutely correct. That is exactly what it is. Encountering unmediated reality means the end of the identity you call self. your traumas, your achievements, your entire history, your carefully constructed identity. It all turns to dust in the recognition of anatta. That is why you don't really want to find the truth. You want to find a safe version of it, a truth that validates you, that makes you special, that gives you power without taking away control. But this truth without comfort is just another filter over raw reality. It is spirituality without anesthesia that you avoid because it demands the death of the ego. The ego's most brilliant trick is transforming itself into a spiritual seeker. Now, it is not just an ordinary ego fighting for survival. It is a spiritual ego with a sacred mission, with a cosmic purpose, with guaranteed future time to reach the goal. The trap of the search becomes the most sophisticated way of avoiding the truth because it presupposes that the truth is out there or in the future, never here and now. As long as you are seeking, the self is safe. The eternal search is the ego's last line of defense against the dissolution of the self, and you have bought into this narrative completely, calling a spiritual journey what is merely a sophisticated escape from the truth that kills. You are not the conscious elite while you seek. You are just the walking dead running in circles, faking evolutionary movement while the illusion of the self remains untouched. Sunyata does not mean that nothing exists. It means that nothing exists in the way you imagine it. Your name, your history, your essence, your traumas, your achievements, all are empty constructions. There is no solid substance in anything, including you. When radical Buddhism speaks of Buddhist emptiness, it is not creating mystical poetry about the cosmic void. It is describing the physics of the mental mechanism. Everything you call real is just a temporary organization of processes with no solid center. You are a verb disguised as a noun, a flow that believes itself to be a fixed thing. And when this illusion of the self collapses, the terror is absolute. The walking dead cannot process this. They need solidity to sustain themselves. For the ego, emptiness is equal to death. When Buddhism and ego truly meet, when anatta, the Buddhist non-self, reveals itself not as a concept but as factual reality, the ego's immune system enters total collapse. If there is no self, who is suffering? Who is winning? Who is going to die? Who is going to be enlightened? All the questions that give meaning to your existence evaporate at once. This is the horror vacui, the fear of the void that is programmed into the root of your consciousness. It is not a philosophical fear that you debate at retreats. It is visceral existential terror, as if the ground vanished beneath your feet and you discovered there was never any ground. You were floating in nothingness the whole time. The defensive reaction is immediate and automatic. To avoid facing the abyss of sunyata, the mind creates substitute truths with desperate urgency: romantic spirituality, personal gods, preordained destinies, soul missions, cosmic purposes, karma as divine justice. All of these are ways of decorating the prison cell so as not to realize the prisoner is a fiction. You paint the walls, change the curtains, rearrange the furniture, and call spiritual therapists to help with the decoration. But you remain trapped. You continue to believe there is someone trapped, and the decoration becomes increasingly elaborate, more beautiful, more spiritual, but the prison remains untouched because you never question the existence of the prisoner. The walking dead live like this, decorating without crossing through the truth. The unfiltered truth that no one wants to hear. You are a set of processes without a center. There is no one inside looking out. There is only the looking without a looker, consciousness without an observer. Realizing this is not liberating for the ego, it is terrifying. That is why you flee to spiritual seeking, to self-knowledge workshops, to manifesting and gratitude techniques. All of this keeps the illusion of the self intact. It gives the walking dead the sensation that there is a you that can improve, evolve, transcend. But unmediated reality does not offer that option. It simply reveals that there was never anyone to improve. And when you touch this truth that truly kills, not with an intellectual concept, but with the recognition of causality, the character you call self begins to dissolve. And that is exactly what you fear most: the end of the narrative you built to feel real. Imagine your life as a reality film running on a monitor. The I is the main character. He suffers, he loves, he seeks the truth within the story of the film. He spends years running through the scenery, looking for the exit, trying to understand the script, seeking the meaning of everything. But here is the localization error that keeps the walking dead trapped: the character versus the screen. The character seeks the light throughout the setting without realizing that he is made of light. Every pixel of your body, every thought, every emotion, everything is light, temporarily organized into patterns that you call reality. But for you to see pure light, unmediated reality, the film must stop. the character must be deleted so that the white screen reveals itself. This is the Buddhist metaphor that cuts deepest. When image processing fails, and life forces these failures upon you through pain, loss, and collapse, you stop seeing the character and begin to see only the raw data, pixels and screen without narrative. The self is just a temporary organization of these pixels. When you stop believing in the solidity of the character, when you see that he is just a temporary pattern on the screen, the character's pain ceases to be yours. It becomes just data on the screen, pure information without an owner. This is not cold indifference, it is the recognition of causality in the structure of experience. The dissolution of the self happens when you finally understand that there was never solid substance where you believed there was a self. The Walking Dead resist this because they need solidity to function. The conscious elite recognize fluidity without trying to freeze it. Time as an illusion is another critical layer. Time is an illusion created by the sequence of frames. The ego needs time to tell its story of before and after, of past trauma and future hope. Without time, there is no narrative. Without narrative, there is no character. In unmediated reality, there is no film, only the electricity of the eternal present. The past is memory, pixels that have already gone out. The future is imagination, pixels that have not lit up yet. The only real moment is this frame being rendered right now. But the ego lives in the past and the future because the pure present is unbearable for it. In the absolute present, without history, it cannot sustain itself as a fixed entity. That is why you flee into planning, into regret, into anything that takes you out of this brutal second where the self has nowhere to hang on. This is the mental freeze frame the Walking Dead use to avoid dissolution. Mediated reality is the film, your interpretations, traumas, and desires filtering what you see. Unmediated reality is seeing the light without the filter of the image. The ego is the colored filter in front of the projector bulb. It gives color, shape, drama, and meaning, but it distorts the pure light. To see without mediation is to look directly at the sun of Sunyata. It is perception without ego, unbearable for the system because there is nothing there for it to understand, possess, or use to strengthen itself. It is just raw light, conscious emptiness, void of history, void of meaning, void of you. And when you touch this unfiltered light, even for a second, you realize that your entire life was spent watching shadows on the cave wall, believing the shadows were factual reality. But now, you have seen the source of the light. And you can no longer pretend that the shadows matter in the same way. The Walking Dead continue to argue about which shadows are better. The conscious elite have left the cave, and they are not coming back. When the ego realizes it is about to be exposed as fiction, it does not surrender. It hands you a sacred mission. It says, okay, I accept that I am limited, so let's seek enlightenment. Let's become better, more conscious, more awake. And you buy into this narrative completely because it seems noble, evolutionary, worthy, but it is a trap. The spiritual search is the most sophisticated defense mechanism the ego has ever developed. It transforms the very threat of dissolution into fuel for its survival. Now you are not just an ordinary member of the Walking Dead, you are a seeker of truth, a spiritual warrior, someone special who is on the path. The trap of the search has become an identity even more resilient than the previous one. The spiritual ego is more dangerous than the ordinary ego because it disguises itself as humility. The trick is perfect because by becoming a seeker of truth, the ego creates two things that guarantee its survival: future time and an agent in control. It needs time to reach the goal. One day I will awaken, I just need to meditate more, read more books, do more retreats, and it needs effort, an I that is making the journey, conquering levels, evolving. As long as you are seeking, the self is safe. Seeking presupposes that the truth is out there or in the future, never in the radical time collapse of the now. You spend decades seeking, accumulating techniques, collecting insights, and you never realize that the search itself is what prevents you from seeing what has always been here. The truth without comfort is not hidden. You are the one hidden from it through the search. This is the spirituality without anesthesia that the Walking Dead avoid at all costs. To stop seeking is not to become apathetic or to give up on life. It is to interrupt unnecessary processing. It is what Zen Buddhism calls reaching non-action, a Buddhist wu-wei applied to consciousness. The moment you stop trying to get somewhere, the film's refresh rate drops to zero. Without movement, the static image reveals its nature. It is made of light. The character running through the scenery looking for the exit finally stops, and in the silence of that non-movement, realizes that the entire scenery, including himself, is a projection on the screen. There is no exit to be found because there was never an entrance. There is no journey because there was never any distance between you and the truth. The separation was an illusion of the self, maintained only by the constant movement of the search. The conscious elite recognize this. The Walking Dead keep running. When the character stops running, he realizes that the ground he stands on, the sky he looks at, and the body he uses are made of the same undifferentiated substance. There is no real separation between observer and observed, between seeker and sought. Everything is emptiness observing itself through temporary forms. To be the screen, the character must stop the search. It is not an effort, it is the end of the narrative. It is not an achievement, it is a surrender to what always was. But the ego does not want to hear this because it means the death of the ego. So it sells you one more workshop, one more technique, one more master, one more promise that now you are truly close, and you keep seeking, infinitely postponing the encounter with the truth that kills, because deep down, you know, when the search ends, you end with it. The Walking Dead prefer to seek eternally rather than dissolve once and for all. Mental sovereignty demands that you break ties with this final anesthesia. Dukkha is translated as suffering, but technically it means an out-of-alignment axle or a creaking wheel. It is the friction inherent to the ego's existence. It is not something you did wrong or negative karma from past lives. It is the structural consequence of existing as a separate self, trying to operate in a universe that has no real separation. Imagine a wheel with a crooked axle trying to turn smoothly. It is impossible. It will creak, it will jam, it will generate constant heat and friction. The ego is that misaligned wheel. It can never roll smoothly because its very structure is incompatible with factual reality. Dukkha is not divine punishment. It is mental physics. It is the sound the illusion of the self makes when it tries to sustain itself against the flow of impermanence. The Walking Dead live in this chronic friction without understanding the mechanism that generates it. The ego is a constant search algorithm. It can never be satisfied because its operational function is wanting, not having. If the ego stopped wanting, it would stop processing and the character would vanish. That is why it lives in a state of chronic dissatisfaction, always chasing the next goal, the next validation, the next pleasure. It reaches a goal, feels satisfaction for 3 days, and then the restlessness returns. It gets the perfect relationship, the dream job, the ideal home, and yet something is missing. Dukkha is the structural dissatisfaction of the film. It doesn't matter if it is a comedy or a drama, if you are rich or poor, famous or anonymous. The fact that you are a limited simulation trying to pass yourself off as absolute reality generates constant friction with the vastness of sunyata. This is human suffering in its purest form, not an accident, but a design of the system. Pain is the best path because it is the only signal the character cannot ignore. Pleasure is anesthesia that keeps you hypnotized by the film. When you feel pleasure, you believe the film is real, that it is worth it, that you have finally found what you were looking for. But pain is a glaring rendering error. The moment the image fails and you feel the heat of the monitor. When pain is intense enough, devastating loss, brutal betrayal, serious illness, the ego cannot sustain the narrative that everything is fine. In this collapse, the light of the screen leaks through the cracks of pain. You see for a moment that the character is not solid, that the story is not real, that you have always been the screen watching the film, never the protagonist inside it. The Walking Dead flee from this pain. The conscious elite use it as training. The Buddha left the formula clear. Suffering equals pain, multiplied by resistance to suffering. Pain is inevitable. Old age, sickness, death, and loss are laws of the system's physics, but suffering is optional. Resistance is the act of trying to edit the film while it is running. It is the ego saying, "This should not be happening to me." When you resist, you create more processing, more friction, more heat in the system. The end of resistance is radical acceptance, allowing the frame to happen without trying to alter it. When resistance goes to zero, pain becomes just raw data on the screen without the poison of suffering. You feel the physical pain, but there is no one being destroyed by it. There is only the experience of pain happening in the empty space of consciousness, and in this recognition, dukkha loses its power to fragment you. You finally understand the mechanism. Now you can operate with hard lucidity instead of reacting like the Walking Dead. Buddha was not a spiritual prophet bringing divine messages. He was the chief engineer who delivered the manual on how to operate human hardware without breaking it. He offered no consolation. He promised no better afterlife. He created no rituals to make you feel special. He mapped the physics of the mind with surgical precision and said, here is how human suffering is generated. Here is how it can be dissolved. Execute the protocols. There is no mysticism in this. There is consciousness engineering. He teaches the mind to observe the inevitable, old age, sickness, death, loss, not as personal tragedies happening to you, but as laws of the system's physics, operating with absolute neutrality. Gravity does not hate you when you fall. Impermanence does not persecute you when it destroys what you love. These are just natural processes, and you can learn to operate within them without fragmenting. This is Buddhism without romanticization. Independence training begins when you realize that nothing in the film can give you real security, because the film is impermanent by design. Anicca, everything that arises, disappears. Everything that is born dies. Everything that meets separates. There are no exceptions. When you seek security in relationships, money, status, or health, you are trying to build a solid house on liquid ground. It may work for a while, but eventually impermanence comes, and it always comes. By training the mind to inhabit the screen instead of the character, to recognize itself as the space where everything happens instead of the thing that happens, you become independent of the world, not because you fled from it or isolated yourself in a cave, but because you finally understood where you truly are. The walking dead seek security in what is impermanent. The conscious elite recognize that only the screen is stable. The mental sovereignty of the operator is simple but brutal. If the world gives you pleasure, you observe lit pixels. If it gives you chaos, you observe lit pixels. You no longer depend on the configuration of the image to be at peace, because your peace is the nature of the mind, not the script of the film. The character may be suffering intensely in the story, sickness, loss, betrayal, bankruptcy, but the screen remains untouched, empty, silent. When you operate from the screen, the character's suffering does not fragment you. You feel the pain. You are not a robot without sensations, but there is no identification with it. It is pain happening in the space of pure consciousness, not pain happening to you. The difference seems subtle conceptually, but in direct experience, it is the difference between hell and freedom. This is sovereign consciousness in action. What changes with this Buddhist mental training is not that your life becomes perfect or that you never suffer again. What changes is that you stop being an emotional plaything of circumstances. The world loses power over you, not because you become insensitive or detached in a cold sense, but because you finally understood the architecture of experience. You saw that you were always the screen, never the film, and this vision cannot be undone. You may temporarily forget, you may be dragged back into identification with the character in moments of extreme pressure, but now you know the way back. You know how to return to the screen when the film gets too intense, and this ability to de-identify under pressure, to inhabit the conscious void even in the middle of chaos, is what Buddha called liberation. It is not egoless enlightenment in the mystical sense. It is operational lucidity that works under any condition. The walking dead collapse. The operator of lucidity remains. If Buddhism deconstructs the software, the self, Epictetus is the hardware security. He says, as long as this illusion is running, you need to know what is yours and what is not. The dichotomy of control is the most efficient mental firewall ever created. There are things that depend on us: opinion, impulse, desire, judgment, how we process the incoming data. And there are things that do not depend on us: body, possessions, reputation, the entire external world. The anesthetized life is the direct result of you trying to control the uncontrollable. When you try to control the world, you waste energy processing the impossible and fail repeatedly. To avoid feeling the chronic pain of failure, you anesthetize yourself. But anesthesia does not solve the problem. It only postpones the inevitable collapse. The walking dead waste all their energy trying to move what does not move. The conscious elite focus only on internal control. Epictetus does not want you to feel the truth or have mystical insight into it. He wants you to guard your mind as a border guard watches hostile territory. Faced with any thought or event, the operator of lucidity asks, is this under my command or is it an external pixel? If it is external, someone else's opinion, betrayal, illness, death, The trained response is, "This is nothing to me." This is not emotional coldness or psychopathic indifference. It is processing economy. It is mental hygiene. You only allow into the system what you can actually operate. Wasting energy reacting to what you do not control is a leak of resources that should be focused on what you can actually command: your perception, your judgment, your internal response to external data. This is Stoicism and Dharma converging in the same strategy. Epictetus's internal control is the aiming system of Vajra intelligence. Without it, you have a powerful weapon, the awareness of emptiness, but you don't know where to point it. You fire at everything, waste ammunition, hit the wrong targets. With Epictetus and Buddhism as a strategic shadow, you become the censor of your own experience. You decide what enters your screen through the Buddhist mental protocol. Unjust criticism? External data do not enter. Brutal betrayal? External data about someone else's character do not enter. Serious illness? External data about biological hardware. What enters is only your internal response, how you process it, what meaning you choose to give or not give. Everything else is noise that you cut at the source before it infects the operating system. This is a mental firewall working in real time. The Walking Dead let everything in and then suffer from the contamination. In daily practice, this radically changes how you operate under pressure. Someone insults you publicly, the spiritual ego collapses into indignation, anger, desire for revenge. The operator of lucidity trained by Epictetus asks, "Is this person's opinion under my control? No. Then it is nothing to me." The insult hits the firewall and is discarded as spam. You don't spend 3 days ruminating, planning the perfect response, telling everyone how you were wronged. You simply do not process the data as relevant. This is not denial or suppression. It is the recognition of causality, that wasting energy on the uncontrollable is an operational error. And when you stop making this error repeatedly, massive energy remains to focus on what truly matters, cultivating hard lucidity, crossing dukkha without fragmenting, inhabiting the screen even when the film burns. The Walking Dead drown in what they do not control. Mental sovereignty sustains itself through the rigor of knowing exactly where its jurisdiction ends. Identity in the mediated view, in the film, I am the protagonist of this story. I am my traumas, my achievements, my unique and special narrative. Identity in the unmediated view on the screen. I am the space where the data arises. I am not the content of the experience. I am the empty field where all experience happens. The difference is not philosophical, it is operational. In the film, you suffer personally with every attack on the character. On the screen, you observe the attack happening without identification. The character may be being destroyed in the story, but the screen remains untouched, silent, empty. When you operate from the screen, the destruction of the character does not fragment you because you finally understood that you were never the character. This is operational anatta, Buddhist non-self applied as a mental protocol. The Walking Dead defend the character to the death. The conscious elite recognize that the character is temporary pixels. Time in the mediated view is a line between past and future, loaded with heavy emotional meaning. You carry guilt for what you did, regret for what you didn't do, anxiety about what might happen. Time in the unmediated view is the eternal present of the pixel update. There is no real timeline, only this frame being rendered now. The past is memory, data already processed and deleted. The future is imagination, data that has not yet lit up. The only real moment is this one. But the ego lives in time because without past and future, it cannot construct a narrative. Without narrative, there is no character. That is why you flee from the pure present through compulsive planning, chronic nostalgia, anything that takes you out of this second, where the I has no substance. This is the collapse of time that the Walking Dead avoid, because it means the end of the narrative in which they exist. Human suffering in the mediated view. Something terrible is happening to me. I am a victim of cosmic injustice. Why me? The universe is against me. Suffering in the unmediated view. There was a spike of intensity in the image, just data being processed. Pain is sensory information without an owner. When you see suffering as something happening to you, there is infinite drama, massive resistance, total fragmentation. When you see suffering as a process happening in the empty space of pure consciousness, there is only the raw experience without the poison of victimization. You feel the pain intensely, directly, but there is no one being destroyed by it. It is pain without a sufferer, and this changes absolutely everything about how you cross through chaos. The Walking Dead identify with every pain. The operator of lucidity observes pain as data in the system. Truth in the mediated view is something the character needs to find out there or in the future through a heroic spiritual search. Truth in the unmediated view is the original state before the film began. It has always been here, it was never lost. You don't need to seek the screen, you already are the screen. The search is what distracts you from seeing this. Why is this conversion so difficult? Because it demands that you abandon the entire structure of meaning that sustains your identity. It demands that you die symbolically before you die physically. It demands that you recognize that your entire life was spent defending a fiction, investing in a character that never existed as a solid entity through anatta. And no one wants that, until the pain is great enough, intense enough, inevitable enough to force the choice between continuing in the hell of the illusion of the self or accepting the funeral of the illusion and being born into unmediated reality. The Walking Dead choose the comfortable illusion. Sovereign consciousness chooses the truth that kills. Level 1 is the access screening, Epictetus's firewall operating in real time. Before any data, external event, criticism, invasive thought is processed by your mind, it must pass through the dichotomy of control. Ask with surgical precision, is this data read-only or read-write? Is it external or internal? If it is external, someone else's opinion, betrayal, illness, death, classify it immediately as noise and deny it access to the emotional center. Do not process it. Do not analyze it. Do not give it energy. If it is internal, your judgment of the event, your chosen response, your perception, classify it as a command and direct 100% of your Vajra intelligence toward conscious execution. This screening is not automatic at first. You will fail, you will react on emotional autopilot, you will let noise contaminate the system. But with disciplined repetition, it becomes a reflex. And when it becomes a reflex, you finally operate with mental sovereignty. The Walking Dead let everything in without a filter. The conscious elite are relentless guardians of their own consciousness. Level 2 is the cache clearing, the emptiness of sunyata applied as a daily Buddhist mental protocol to prevent the self from starting to crystallize again, from the character gaining solidity through narrative repetition. Perform an existential cache clearing. At the end of each cycle or day, repeat mentally like someone shutting down a machine. The character is finished. The film is empty. Only the screen remains. Shed the label of winner or loser. Did you have a productive day? It isn't you. It is just a process that generated specific outputs. Did you have a catastrophic day? It isn't a personal failure. It is just a different configuration of pixels and screen. Return to the state of unmediated reality before sleeping. Do not carry identity into the next day. Each morning the character is born again. Each night he dies. And you, as the screen, observe this cycle without identifying with any version of the character. This is systematic de-identification. The Walking Dead accumulate identity like a burden. The operator of lucidity dissolves it daily. Level 3 is the hardware cooling, the radical acceptance of dukkha. Suffering arises when the hardware tries to resist the physics of factual reality, when the ego says, this should not be happening. Cooling consists of eliminating the friction at the source. Accept the current frame of the film exactly as it is, not with defeated resignation, but with the recognition of causality. Is pain happening? Accept that pain is happening. Brutal loss. Accept that loss is happening. Do not waste energy trying to edit what is already on the screen. You cannot change the present frame. You can only choose how to process it internally. By accepting the pain without resistance, you remove the poison of suffering. The pain continues, it may even intensify, but there is no longer the layer of why me poisoning the experience. This is Buddhist amor fati, not a romantic love for fate, but the acceptance of the inevitable without drama. The Walking Dead fight against the inevitable. Sovereign consciousness flows with it. These 3 levels are not theory for philosophical debate. They are operational protocols that you execute daily, under pressure, in a hostile environment. They do not work if you only understand them conceptually. They work when they become an automatic reflex through disciplined repetition. Non-reactivity training, 1,000 times until it becomes a reflex. Cache clearing, every night without exception. Hardware cooling, in real time when the pain arrives, and the pain always arrives. Impermanence does not negotiate. Death does not wait for you to be ready. Chaos does not ask for permission. But when you operate these protocols with rigor, when they become your second nature, you finally understand what Buddha meant by liberation. It is not that you never suffer again, it is that you pass through suffering without fragmenting, without losing lucidity, without forgetting that you have always been the screen watching the film burn. This is the mental hygiene of the conscious elite. The Walking Dead lack the discipline to keep the system clean. You need to practice the interruption of processing if you want to touch the truth that kills. This is the most direct exercise to begin inhabiting the screen instead of the film. It is not guided visualization. It is not relaxing meditation. It is not an emotional relief technique. It is a protocol for deactivating the character in real time. First, notice the impulse of wanting to understand or wanting to evolve. See this as the character starting to run on the screen. Identify any movement of the ego wanting to conquer, explain, defend, or improve. The spiritual ego is always in motion because motion is how it sustains itself. Standing still, it collapses. So you are going to force the stop. You are going to execute a mental freeze frame within your own consciousness. This is non-reactivity training in its purest form. The Walking Dead never stopped the mechanism. The conscious elite know when to shut down the processing. Mentally, give the command to pause, as if you were freezing the frame of the reality film. Stop all internal movement, thought trying to resolve, emotion trying to express, ego trying to react. Everything freezes. In the beginning, it will last less than a second before the system automatically reboots. The ego panics with the silence and triggers emergency thoughts to regain control. But with practice, you can maintain the freeze for longer. 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds of absolute pause in processing. In this pause, something extraordinary happens. You realize that there is space between stimulus and response, that you are not forced to react automatically, that there is choice where you thought there was only reflex. This is stopping the ego's search for constant control. The Walking Dead are hostages to reactivity. The operator of lucidity chooses when to process. In the freezing of the image, do not look at what you are feeling or thinking. Do not analyze the content of the frame. Look at what allows the frame to appear. Look at the screen behind the thought, the space where the thought arises. Observer without identity. Who is observing the thought? Look for the observer. You will find nothing solid, only pure consciousness observing itself. There is no separate you seeing thoughts. There is only the process of thinking happening in empty space. When you see this directly, not as a concept, but as a raw experience, the character begins to dissolve. Because you have finally touched the truth the ego fears most. There is no one at the center. There never was. This is consciousness without an observer, unmediated reality revealing itself through the technique. The Walking Dead seek the observer obsessively. Sovereign consciousness recognizes that one never existed. Feel the pure light of the pixels, without story, without time, without someone experiencing. Just the raw clarity of consciousness being conscious of itself. Stay here as long as you can before the film automatically restarts, and it will restart. The ego does not give up easily, but now you know the way back. You know how to freeze the frame, how to look at the screen, how to touch unmediated reality. What this exercise reveals with surgical brutality: you are not the character. You never were. The character versus the screen. The character is a temporary projection on the screen, and you are the screen. You always were, you always will be, even after this specific film ends and the pixels go out permanently. This is not a comforting belief. It is the recognition of the causality of the structure of experience, and when you see this, really see it, there is no going back. You may temporarily forget, you may be dragged back into identification with the character, but now you know the truth, and the truth that kills the observer is the only truth that sets you free. The Walking Dead never execute this. The conscious elite practice until it becomes permanent lucidity. You saw the truth not as a reward but as annihilation. Sunyata not as mystical poetry but as the physics of the mind. The self not as an essence to be improved but as a rendering error to be recognized. The search not as a sacred path but as the ego's final anesthesia. The film and the screen not as a pretty metaphor but as a technical description of the structure of experience. You saw that the character must die for the light to reveal itself. That time is an editing illusion. That you were never the protagonist of the story. You were always the screen where the story happens, and this vision cannot be undone. You may temporarily forget, you may be dragged back into identification, but now you know where the exit is. You know the door was always open, you were just too busy decorating the cell. You stop running from the void and begin to inhabit it. You stop seeking security in the film and recognize that the only real stability is the screen. You stop trying to improve the character and accept that the character must be deleted so that unmediated reality can show itself without filters. This is not spiritual evolution where you become a better version of yourself. It is dissolution where you finally understand that there was never a solid version to begin with. Only temporary processes that you mistook for permanent identity. When you operate from the screen, the character's suffering does not fragment you. You traverse Dukkha without resistance, apply Epictetus's firewall without effort, and execute mental hygiene protocols as an automatic reflex. Not because you became an enlightened saint, but because you finally stopped believing in the character's solidity. There is no going back. Once you see that the film is an illusion, you cannot unsee it. The world keeps turning, chaos keeps operating, impermanence keeps destroying everything that arises, but you are no longer the target, because you finally understood that there was never anyone to be hit. There is only empty consciousness observing pixels turning on and off. Pain happens, loss happens, death happens, but there is no longer personal identification with the drama. It is just data on the screen. And the screen remains untouched, empty, silent, independent of the image configuration. This responsibility is brutal because there is no pause. You cannot take a vacation from lucidity. You cannot turn off the recognition when it becomes inconvenient. Once you have seen, and now you must operate with this full-time, under maximum pressure, in a hostile environment. Continue decorating the prison cell with romantic spirituality, or accept the funeral of the self and be born into unmediated reality. Continue seeking eternally, postponing the encounter, accumulating techniques and insights, or stop seeking and recognize that the truth was always here. You were the one distracted by the movement of the search. The truth that kills is the only truth that sets you free, but it only frees because it kills first. It kills the seeker, it kills the observer, it kills the illusion of someone separate wanting to reach something distant, and what remains is not the enlightened you, it is just the light, without an owner, without a story, without personal meaning. Just the empty clarity of sunyata, observing itself through temporary forms. This terrifies the ego. That is why you fled your whole life. But now you know, and you can no longer pretend ignorance. You have reached the end, but there is no one here to receive a prize. If you listened and understood, your ego is desperately trying to find a place to hide. Do not allow it. Close your eyes and execute the final command. Repeat mentally, not with faith, but with the rigor of someone shutting down a machine. I am not what happens. I am the space where it happens. I am not the seeker. I am what remains when the search gives up. May my story die, so that reality may live. May my name be erased, so that the light may be revealed. I no longer accept the anesthesia of meaning. I inhabit the rawness of the void. The film has stopped. You are no longer in the hell of an anesthetized life, because there is no longer anyone to be anesthetized. You have touched the veil. You are the screen. Subscribe to the channel if you want to be part of the conscious elite that does not seek spiritual comfort but hard lucidity. Turn on notifications not to consume motivational content, but to sustain the rigor of mental training. Each video is a brutal reminder that the character must die daily so that the screen remains visible. We do not promise peace. We promise only tools to break ties and achieve mental sovereignty. The cinema session is over. Reality has begun. Operate in silence.